The smell of lemon polish and brass always clung to Aisha's father's jacket when he came home from the night shift. It lingered in their small apartment like a stubborn cord, unexpectedly warm, imperfect, resilient. On good mornings, meaning he'd found overtime and she caught a full night's sleep, Aisha would wake to the click of his key and the soft thud of his boots, and the first thing she'd do was reach for the case under her bed. Her violin wasn't special. The varnish was chipped. A spiderweb crack ran like a fault line from the F-hole toward the tailpiece, stabilized by a luthier with clear glue and luck. Yet under her fingers, vibrato just enough, intonation like a promise, it sang. "Morning, star," her father said, setting the mop bucket by the door. He was still in his gray work shirt, Rains Plaza facilities, stitched over the pocket. "Play me something before I crash." Aisha tucked the violin into the hollow of her neck, set her bow, and let the first measures of Bach's Chaconne climb into the kitchen steam. The piece scared most grown violinists, its architecture vast as a cathedral, its grief all-consuming, its joy hard-won. She didn't play the whole thing. She played enough, the opening gravity, the surprising lift, a glimpse of light through stone. When she finished, the apartment felt larger. Her father leaned against the counter and smiled like it hurt. "You build worlds with that thing," he said. Meanwhile, 5 miles away, the atrium of Rains Plaza, headquarters of Colton Rains' capital, gleamed like a glacier. Rains, a millionaire many times over and a man who believed rules were for the uncapitalized, was throwing his annual gala, tuxedos, flutes of champagne, a string quartet relegated to tasteful background. The RSVP list read like a finance blog's fever dream. The event was marketed as a benefit for community arts access, though the budget went mostly to uplighting. Rains had discovered, as men like him consistently do, that philanthropy could be a costume. He liked the way it fit. "How about a surprise this year?" he said in a planning meeting, flipping a titanium pen between fingers. "Something to make the crowd feel generous." The room of planners murmured. A junior associate mentioned he'd heard the night janitor's kid played violin. He'd seen her once, practicing on a bench near the service elevator. Rains smiled in that tiny, reptilian way. "Perfect," he said. "Authenticity. Grit. We'll get a real Cinderella moment out of it." He chuckled, and for a second there was nothing in his eyes at all. The invitation came, if you could call it that, by way of an email to facilities. "We extend a unique opportunity for your daughter to perform a short piece at our gala," it read, all sugar around a stone. "Black excellence in the arts is core to our mission this year." The phrase sat on the screen like a bruise. Her father read it 3 times, jaw working, knuckles white around the paper when he printed it out. "You don't have to do this," he said finally. "If they think they can. Make me a punchline?" Aisha's voice was steady. "Let me tell the joke for once." "That's not what I meant." "I know," she said, and took his hands. They were rough, cold, full of the building's ghosts. "If they give me a microphone, I'll use it. If they give me a stage, I'll take it." They prepared with the quiet ferocity of people who understand stakes. Her old teacher, Mrs. Kowalski, retired second chair from a regional orchestra, chopstick thin and merciless about intonation, agreed to coach her after hearing Chaconne float through the phone. "Ambitious," Mrs. K said, which in her dialect was a blessing. "If you do Bach, do Bach. No apology." They spent evenings in the community center's multipurpose room, where basketball lines crisscrossed the floor and the lights were loud as bees. They worked on bow distribution and how to build a phrase without revealing the scaffolding. They talked about what the piece asked and what it answered. "Spare the tears in practice," Mrs. K said. "They'll come on stage." Aisha read about the performing life like people read horoscopes, for signs, for fate. She learned that winners of international competitions often started at 4, not 12, as she had. She learned that blind auditions, introduced to reduce bias, increased the chances women were hired by orchestras. She took comfort in the word blind, the idea that sometimes what people heard mattered more than what they saw. She watched videos of Hilary Hahn playing with the kind of calm that only exists at unbearable temperatures. She practiced until her fingers burned and then practiced differently, more cleverly, so they could heal. 2 nights before the gala, they went to Marinelli Violins, a shop tucked between a shoe repair and a Cuban cafe. The owner, a man who looked carved from a stump and who had spent a lifetime listening to wood, had offered to help if that girl keeps working like that. He set a case on the counter and opened it like a magician who doesn't trust applause. "This is a modern Italian," he said. "Not fancy, not one of Antonio's cousins. But it has a core like a bell and it'll carry." Aisha lifted the instrument, its varnish the color of overripe cherries, and drew the bow across the D string. The note bloomed. "It's like it makes room for me," she whispered. "Or like it refuses to let you hide," Marinelli said. On the night itself, Rains Plaza glittered like it was trying to prove a point. The quartet at the hedged entrance nodded at her violin case with the sad camaraderie of gigging musicians. Inside, everything smelled like Money's idea of a garden. People air-kissed and mentioned Aspen, which meant skiing now but would mean music later if the conversation turned to summer festivals. Cameras roved like lazy sharks. Rains found them near the service hallway. He was taller in person, or else arrogance added inches. "You must be Aisha," he said in a voice he used when he wanted people to admire it. "We are so thrilled to have you. Your father does tremendous work. Truly one of our essential people." Her father's back straightened. "We mop your floors," he said. "Essential is the building not falling on your head." Rains blinked, then smiled like nothing had happened. 10 minutes to curtain, he said, and glided away. A stage manager with a headset, overworked, underpaid, the real hero of the evening, led them to a wing curtained in velvet. "You're after the award for the streaming platform deal," she said. "Play 3 to 4 minutes. If you go 5, they'll panic." "Got it?" "Got it," Aisha said. She took out the violin, tightened her bow just enough, rubbed a crescent of amber rosin so the hair would grip. She tested the E string, which whistled if you looked at it wrong. "Not tonight," she told it. "Not tonight. There's a moment before you walk on stage when sound thins, like you're standing on the edge of weather. Then the lights hit, the world narrows, then expands." She stepped into the heat and the noise and felt Mrs. Kowalski's hand at her shoulder, felt her father's breath somewhere behind her in the dark, felt the floor under her shoes and the thin give of the stage. She did not announce the piece. She did not let the audience prepare its opinions around the word Bach. She simply began. The opening of the Chaconne is an argument with God. It's also a lesson in truth-telling. You can't fake its structure, you can't bluff its grammar. It demands a spine and a heart and a way to move between them. Her tone was not the plush, forgiving kind. It was clean, edged, luminous. The sound threaded through crystal and chatter until the chatter ceased. The waiters stopped. Someone's phone lit up, then slid face down across a table. A woman who had been laughing because she was expected to laugh put 2 fingers on the stem of her glass and forgot to lift it. Aisha built the ground base then climbed, double stops like braided wire, arpeggios lifting like scaffolding into sky. She thought of the janitor's closet where her father kept his bucket and how he taped a picture of her at 8, front teeth missing, to the inside of the door. She thought of blind auditions and the way fabric can change the world. She thought of the girl in the service hallway the junior associate had clocked, hair in a bun, backpack open, practicing because she had 20 free minutes and no room to waste the time. There's a spot in the Chaconne where the light shifts so completely it startles you, even if you've been there before. The major section unfurls like a field you didn't know was behind the house. When she got there, she let herself breathe. The sound warmed. A clatter at the back of the room that would have broken her concentration a year ago was absorbed by the piece's architecture and set down gently, like a bird returned to its nest. She didn't play the full 15 minutes. She chose her exit like a line break. She ended with a cadence that felt inevitable and, somehow, like a decision. Silence is a measure, too. It held for a heartbeat, then 2, then shattered. The applause began in waves from the edges of waitstaff, the quartet outside, the stage manager who had stopped pretending to check her cue sheet and simply watched, and then rushed to the center. Some donors stood because it felt safer than sitting. Others stood because standing was the only possible response to a thing that refuses to be ignored. A camera crew that had come for the streaming deal swiveled. The videographer zoomed in too quickly and then corrected, framing Aisha's face, sweat at the hairline, eyes blazing cold. Rains did not stand. He clapped, a precise staccato, calculating. He turned to the person on his right and said, a little too loudly for the microphones not to pick it up, "You see? This is why we do what we do." By morning, that sentence would be attached to him like a burr. Backstage, her father waited with a towel and a bottle of water, eyes bright. He didn't speak. He just pressed his forehead to hers, and she felt the callus on his thumb where the mop handle had made its long argument with bone. Mrs. Kowalski squeezed her elbow in approval. "Not perfect," she said, voice gruff with pride. "Better than perfect. Human." The video hit 100,000 views before noon. By evening, it was everywhere. People wrote breathless think pieces about art and gatekeeping, about class, race, and the difference between celebration and spectacle, about the way a minor chord can hold a country's contradictions and still resolve without lying. Emails found their way to an account she barely used. A summer program offered a scholarship. A conservatory pre-college asked for an audition tape. A violinist she'd admired since she was 12 sent a voice memo, "Play for yourself first. Let the rest be noise." Rain's PR team posted a thread about unlocking opportunity. The comments were cruel in the way truth can be cruel. Someone stitched the video and asked, unlocking opportunity for whom? Someone else dug up the gala budget and compared it to the community arts line item. The math was unflattering. An intern leaked the planning meeting notes. The phrase, Cinderella moment, made headlines, and not the kind Rains preferred. He tried to pivot. He invited Aisha and her father to a partnered announcement about a new fund. He framed it as a collaboration. She read the press release and saw the past tense baked into the future tense. They wanted her story, they didn't want her voice. She declined, politely at first, then publicly when polite didn't work. Let him write a check to the Sphinx Performance Academy, or to the youth orchestra that let me borrow a practice room, she told a local reporter who caught her after school. Let him fund blind auditions in city arts programs. He doesn't need my face to do right. The reporter blinked at a high schooler with media training she hadn't paid for. What will you do? She asked. Practice, Aisha said. Then play. The city, which often forgets its own heart, remembered for a minute. The community center hosted a concert. Marinelli loaned her the violin again, this time without the hum of risk in his eyes. A pianist from the church down the street volunteered to rehearse the Bruch concerto with her. They jammed in a basement so echoey they had to speak in gestures. Kids with sticky hands sat cross-legged in the front row and learned when to clap by instinct and joy. When she walked on stage at the community center gym, stage taped out, lights borrowed from the theater program, microphones finicky, she caught her father leaning against the wall, not the aisle. He'd learned to leave the path clear for people who might need to run. She gave them Bruch, first movement, because sometimes you give a crowd fireworks that also contain the moon. She found the places her bow could land without apology. Double stops that had bullied her in practice now felt like handshakes with an old friend. She didn't think of Rains, or the gala. She thought of the way sound can change air, and air can change people, and people can change systems if enough of them decide to listen. The applause was loud, but louder was the little girl who yelled, again, and meant it. After, as the crowd thinned and the chairs clattered into stacks like a polite avalanche, her father picked up an errant cup and dropped it in the trash. Force of habit, he said, embarrassed. That habit keeps the world from smelling like a locker room, she said, and looped her arm through his. Also, you can put mopping on your resume as a crisis management. He laughed so hard he had to sit. I'm proud of you, he said when he could speak. I know, she said. Me too. A week later, a foundation without a billionaire's last name offered to help fund lessons, not because a camera caught her but because Mrs. Kowalski sent a furious, brilliant email that read like a review. A guidance counselor, who had underestimated the uses of curiosity, found a list of city programs that provided instruments to students who needed them. A luthier at Marinelli's taught her to change her own strings, so the E would stop trying to embarrass her. She started tutoring younger players in exchange for bus fare and gratitude. Rains. He gave a check. A large one. It arrived not with a photo op but with a letter his PR team couldn't spin. We got it wrong. We will try to get it right. It wasn't absolution. It was a receipt. On a quiet Sunday, Aisha brought the modern Italian back to the shop and lingered, unwilling to close the case. I'll see it again, she told Marinelli, half a plea. You will, he said. But don't forget the old one. It taught you what sound costs. That night she cleaned her own violin carefully, wiped rosin dust from the strings, loosened the bow, checked the bridge wasn't leaning. She played the opening of the Chaconne, softly enough that the neighbors didn't bang on the ceiling. She thought about how the piece endures, through wars and birthdays and mop water and marble floors, through hands that mean harm and hands that carry the bucket anyway. She thought about jokes, and who gets to tell them. They invited me to be the punchline, she whispered to the empty room, bow hovering. I think I prefer being the composer. If you enjoyed this story and want more grounded, cinematic narratives based on real-world details and issues, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Your support helps me make more stories that amplify talent, dignity, and joy over cruelty.